Hey everyone, this is John Houston with CIOTalks, where we bring you interviews with some of the top thought leaders in the tech world. My guest today is Mike Miller. Mike is the Vice Provost for Information Services and the Chief Information Officer at California Polytechnic State University. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Mike, changes in technology are happening at accelerating rates. As head of IT for such a large institution, how do you plan for this?
Well, I'm tempted to say glibly, you plan the best you can.
Okay.
None of us really have the resources to do it the way I think we'd like to do it, but I think acknowledging it's something we have to be constantly aware of and communicating with each other as best we can at least starts to set a tone.
Okay.
Use of professional associations on campus here, utilizing our advisory committees, which is another way of marketing and reaching out. The one advantage a college campus has, of course, it's full of faculty experts.
Okay.
And they all have bits and pieces of the information we need. And if we can bring it together, we can be smarter about thinking about the future.
Okay. So communication's the name of the game.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, it's often the name of the game.
Okay, fair enough. So along that line, one of the big movements across a lot of different industries is the bring your own device movement, where people are increasingly wanting to bring their own phones, computers, tablets. What trends do you see with this movement?
Yeah, it's interesting. So going back to the previous question, so this is BYOD is something we've been thinking about for at least 3 or 4 years. And knowing this is the direction that would be appropriate for our campus. Unlike, say, a school, a high school or a middle school, where you're dealing with children and you can set a standard across the school district and have everybody conform to it for the purposes of education. A university is more like a community of scholars. It's a very common term. And it's big enough to be the equivalent of a small city. So you can't really tell people what to do.
Right.
People in engineering, well, at least some of them still like Unix boxes. People in the business school usually prefer PCs, but over in the architecture school, they love Macintosh. So we have to be able to adapt to all of those. And there's good reasons for those choices.
Right.
And when you talk about mobile devices, it's all over the map.
Mm-hmm. So
I'd like to say we already have a strategy in place, but I think the best I can say is we've identified it as an important strategic direction.
Okay.
We are constantly building our wired and Wi-Fi resources for the campus to be able to support this,
right.
Trying to mature our mobile technology and strategy, and then focusing on VDI, virtualization. If we can virtualize the software that the students use, it means that any classroom can become a computer classroom.
Okay.
Right now we still have installed computer classrooms, which get used a lot.
Right.
But if we had well over 400 classrooms, if any one of them could be used that way, the flexibility is amazing.
Got you. So this means moving more of your software information into the cloud, so some sort of virtual environment that can be accessed from anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay. So go ahead.
No, the thing I was going to say is, when people think about colleges and learning, we all think about the faculty member in the front of a class and what happens in a classroom. But the reality is most learning happens outside of the classroom. So we're a fairly traditional campus, and therefore, excuse me a second, people continue to learn all over the place. We're polytechnic, so a lot of what we do is applied.
Okay.
Applied learning. If it's in the College of Engineering, people are in laboratories where they're in the field building things.
Right.
Or in the College of Agriculture, they're out growing things or working with livestock. So we have to be able to serve them wherever they are.
Okay. And so going to that a little bit more, obviously you have somewhat interesting, not only do you have different departments, but you also have different user groups, so staff versus students. Do you find there's a challenge with that, or do you just have different offerings for both, or a combined offering, or how do you handle that?
Well, as an enterprise, we certainly look for enterprise solutions to things so that it's one email system for all groups, whether it's faculty, students, or staff. But in a lot of cases, as I was describing before, we have to try to adapt to a particular college or discipline because of their preferences around technology use. And that's where some of it. If we could just cookie cutter everything as an enterprise, that would make our lives so much easier.
Yep.
And that's why anticipating what's coming is always this unique challenge. We're always thinking about it. We're always talking about it. But there are these surprises. Right. And I'll give you one example. We have a pretty robust Wi-Fi system on campus. Last year, on a typical day, we would get about 5,800 unique logons.
Okay.
This year, for some bizarre reason, unique logons per day is 37,000.
Wow, it's quite the bump.
Yeah, quite the bump. So we plan for growth, but we never plan for something like that. And it's actually something we're always in contact with colleagues in other universities around the country. They're seeing something similar as well.
Okay.
So there's something about the class of 2014, this year's first-year students, where for us there's more of them, but not significantly more.
Right.
But they have brought more devices that are logged on all the time and are carried with them in and out of different Wi-Fi zones, so that the logons have just skyrocketed. And we're needing to think about expanding our Wi-Fi capability years ahead of where we thought we were going to be.
Okay. Interesting. And do you have any specific applications or websites or web apps that you use to assist with this, or to give students a new offering that maybe they didn't have even a year or two ago?
Well, there's always new things coming and going. We of course offer things. A lot of it grows out of the colleges themselves or the departments themselves. They may require certain things for their students. Statistics department here, for example, has at least 3 special statistics packages that they make available for students. And we don't always know about those in advance.
Fair enough.
So it's all over.
Okay. Interesting. So we talked a lot about things changing fairly dramatically in the last few years, which leads me to my next question about change management. When change is so rapid and oftentimes fairly disruptive, how do you make sure that not only your staff and the IT department is ready, but the entire institution can both understand and be prepared for the change?
Yeah, good question. Again, there's nothing formal that we do that I would point to that's significantly successful to be replicated elsewhere. I think it goes back to my original comment about communication.
Yep.
Trying to find opportunities for staff to come together to share ideas.
Okay.
I mean, we have about 90 people in our IT department, and each of them has a specialty. Maybe they're a database administrator or something, but they all enjoy technology in a broader sense. You could almost say they're enthusiasts. Mm-hmm. So if you can create opportunities to bring them together and share that actually helps in trying to, in a free-form way, think about the future.
Okay.
We actually have, our system architect has an unofficial title of innovation advocate.
Okay.
So part of his role is to try to stimulate some of those kinds of conversations.
Okay.
Or to go in and work with a specific work group around how they're currently working and how might we use metrics and data to help us analyze perhaps how we could be working better or what we might see as opportunities for the future.
Okay.
Sharing it with the campus is a different kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to basically marketing and looking for opportunities to have these broad dialogues. Again, we've got a community of 20,000 people, perhaps a few more, many of whom live here. Others commute back and forth. typically staff and faculty. How to get the word out is always interesting. I mean, we've got electronic newsletters, we've got email, we have the school newspaper. All of those things we utilize. And it's not unusual to talk to a faculty member about some new service and they say, well, nobody ever told me about this.
Sure.
The ability to hit delete is so much easier than reading correspondence. So trying to figure out how to get the word out is really hard. Okay. And in fact, I have come to the conclusion that if we can scrape the money together, we have to do something around marketing ourselves on campus.
Okay.
To do all this wonderful stuff and then people don't know about it is a crime.
Okay. And on that, a lot of companies that I've spoken to have mentioned that there's this tension between wanting new things and wanting old stuff to not be broken. So you have a lot of legacy systems that are maybe some departments rely on heavily that might be 5, 10, or even older years old. How do you nudge them along to change but keep it so things are still functional? You don't have like downtime or issues with that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Since we do most of the enterprise level systems, we can nudge people along to the next one. So we're in the process of changing basically email systems. We call it our next generation collaborative environment because it should be more than just email. So calendaring, document sharing, a lot of the things that are commonly available to most individuals, but on an enterprise basis, needs improvement here.
Okay.
So there's been, besides our own research and sharing that research with the campus, you create opportunities for people that have hands-on experiences with the options and weigh their choices. But again, it's a constant marketing effort to try and bring them along. We're just getting to the point of getting ready to announce the new direction for the campus, and we're expecting anywhere from a half to 3/4 of the people will be upset because everybody's got their favorite, and no matter what you choose, it's going to be wrong.
Fair enough.
So that's all part of the process. We understand, but we want to share. Again, just as faculty do research and share their research, we want to share the research we did because these are smart, pretty typically reasonable people, and even if they don't agree with it, they'll probably understand and work with us on it.
Okay.
So that kind of stuff is interesting. Another thing around innovation is because it is a university, we have an institute called or a center rather, for innovation and entrepreneurship. So they typically, it's faculty with various specialties working with students who may actually have ideas for new products or services that they would like to grow into something. They draw in a lot of people from the surrounding community or sometimes other parts of the state to work directly together.
Okay.
And it's that whole spirit of innovation that I'm looking for ways to partner with because we need the exact same thing.
Right.
And some of it is just sharing the inspiration. Some of it is around strategies for helping it to take root.
Yeah. Okay. That sort of leads me into my last question about when you have all this change, it can sort of feel like I just need to spend 100 hours a day just making sure things are working and things aren't breaking, especially if there's so many diverse groups who need different things. In that environment where just sometimes treading water feels like an accomplishment, how do you encourage moving forward and driving innovation? You mentioned a few things there, but is there anything other than that you can try and do to help push forward?
Again, I don't think I have any special solution here. Again, it's again being aware that it's a need and trying as best you can in your own environment to figure out how to stimulate that. So an innovation advocate is one. Reaching out to the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, that's another. Okay. And that expands the conversation. looking for opportunities for staff to come together to share what they know, and collectively they just know so much.
Right.
This is all good, and just keep building that. If you can create an attitude and an environment, it has a tendency to catch fire and carry on almost on its own.
Okay, so it's a culture thing. That makes sense. And so maybe tell me just a little bit more about this innovation advocate. I mean, is it just a person who likes to read a lot of new stuff and comes with ideas, or are they tasked with actually developing things or delivering things, or what's the role of this advocate?
Yeah, first of all, it's not a major part of the person's role. He's basically our system architect, but
Okay.
part of that is always looking ahead to what's coming that we need to be prepared for, how to integrate new technologies into what already exists, and trying to figure out what needs to be phased out. So it's actually, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Ryan Madison. So building both on his the major part of his job description and his natural curiosity and abilities, trying to feed that a bit to reach out and encourage other parts of the organization to do the same thing.
Okay.
So I think we're in the early stages of it, but again, if we can create opportunities, I think they'll start to build on each other.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Mike, I'd like to thank you so much for doing this interview, and thank to all of you for watching. Be sure to sign up in the upper right corner of the site to receive an email when new interviews are posted. Also follow us at CIOTalks on Twitter to stay on top of all things CIOTalks related. And lastly, please submit recommendations for which tech leader you'd like to see interviewed next. Thanks again for watching, and thanks to Mike for participating. And I look forward to bringing you more great interviews. Thanks.